I went into prison 3 times, and the last time I went into prison, I was strongly addicted to all sorts of drugs, cocaine, cannabis, alcohol. And on this last sentence I'd done, which was quite a long time, it profoundly changed my life.
I would always have said that I was the kind of person who would never have ended up in prison, but God needed to do something drastic to get my attention.
I started getting into trouble at quite a young age, really. Coming from a bit of a dysfunctional family background. My dad was an alcoholic, and so I started drinking at quite a young age. My dad left home when I was about 10, 11 years old, and as soon as he went, that was the authority figure gone, and I felt like I could do what I wanted to do. Because as I started drinking, a lot of anger, a lot of stuff came up, and it turned into a lot of violent crimes. One night I just went too far and did something really serious, and it ended up with a 3.5-year sentence. At that time I was just using drugs. I just discovered really cannabis. The type of people that were around me, my friends at that time, they would all smoke, and it just made sense just to buy a big piece in cheaper and cut it all up for my friends. That's how we started dealing. There was a lot of anger from the past in me, and so when I started doing drugs, it was bringing that anger up in many different ways. One minute I could be sat in a room full of friends, totally fine, and the next minute my mood just changed like that. In the midst of all that craziness and chaos, I'd always had a strong belief of God, or for want of a better word, of truth. And of course, I searched for the truth in all the wrong places. I searched for it in drugs, was the main place where I searched for it. And again, with tarot cards and occult stuff. I can remember one time, just shortly before my last prison sentence, I was climbing up this hill, and all the things that I used to think about, that I used to talk about with my friends night after night, when we used to sit up on drugs, just talking about the reason for life and why we were really here and what the truth was. All that stuff was going through my mind. I can remember getting to the top of this hill, and I just looked up into the sky and just said, okay, I know that you're there somewhere, God. I want to know your truth. I want to know the truth about why we're here. Reveal yourself to me. Shortly after that type of prayer thing, I was arrested for quite a serious offence that gave me a 6-year sentence. I didn't really realise it at that time, but God was answering my prayer. It was a blessing in disguise. I didn't really have to do my 6-year sentence. I had friends who, by making a phone call, would have went round to the house of the guy that I'd offended against and prevent him from going to court against me. And by doing that, there'd be no witnesses, so I'd be a free man, I'd walk out. But I believe God was saying, this is the truth, you've asked for the truth, this is the truth. Are you going to walk in it, or are you going to live the lie? As I went into the cell, there was a Bible there, and I'd heard a lot about this Bible, a friend and partner in crime who I grew up with, and we're like brothers. All of a sudden he'd went all weird on me, he'd become a Christian kind of thing, and he just started expressing his belief in Jesus. And so I'd heard a lot about Jesus in the Bible, but I'd never actually read it for myself. I'd always looked for the truth in the sky and in the stars, and I'd never actually thought that it'd be so close as a book in my hand. And so I started flicking through it. It started explaining the way my theories, the theories that I used to sit up and think about night after night, the things that I was thinking about on top of that hill. It was actually speaking about these things, and that's what drew me. The Bible drew me to God like a magnet. There were times inside when I was reading through the Bible that I didn't like what I was reading. It wasn't so much that it wasn't making sense, but it was just uncomfortable reading some of that stuff and acknowledging some of the things that God was asking me to do. There were times when I got very angry with God, and I can remember ripping the Bible up and just throwing it away. Just thinking, no, man, that's too hard, I don't want nothing else to do with this. You know, in the midst of that battle, I decided to submit to God and do things His way.
One of the first fruits that I saw of Finney's life changing is when he wanted to speak to the police to confess some crimes that he'd done that they didn't know about. I think that's an amazing sign of God transforming someone's life, because he could have received a lot more time on his sentence for that. Amazingly, the police didn't want to press charges, but they were amazed, like all of us, that Finney wanted to do that.
God was almost saying, okay, you've been praying for the truth, this is the truth, and the first truth that He showed me was the truth about myself. It was almost as if He put the mirror of reality in front of me, and I was able to see myself truthfully for who I really was. I didn't like what I saw. Prison had formed me into a person that wasn't a very nice person, and the only thing that really changed my life on that last sentence within the prison system was God.
What we've seen is an extraordinary spiritual hunger in the prisons. Alpha started in the prisons in 1994, and it seems to have spread almost like wildfire. There are 160 prisons in the UK, and over 80% of them are now running the course.
Alpha gave me hope. When I first come to jail, I was in an emotional wreck. Had no hope, didn't want no hope. And coming to Alpha, it opened my eyes.
On my very first Alpha group, I could really see a difference in myself. And every time I come to Alpha group, I was just on fire, really. I was just happy. I didn't want to leave the group, didn't want to leave the room. I've become a Christian in this room right here. So this room's got a lot of meaning for me.
Having faith can change your life, and it's changed my life big time.
I first met Finney at Dartmoor Prison. We were doing Alpha courses there, and Finney came on the Alpha course.
No prisoner puts in a transfer to go to Dartmoor Prison. They're normally sent there as a disciplinary, but my friend had told me that there's some serious people there that are following God.
I still do remember quite clearly going into his cell 2 or 3 days perhaps after he arrived in Dartmoor, and spending a while chatting to him and discovering that he'd made a commitment to Christ when he was in Exeter. It was quite a tentative commitment.
Literally a couple of days before leaving Exeter, because I used to play the guitar, I prayed for a guitar. And literally within that week of arriving at Dartmoor, one of the chaplains approached me and says, "We're just forming a worship band, can you play an instrument?"
And he looked at me and said, "Yeah, I do."
I was pretty freaked out because I just remembered my prayer. That's where I discovered the Alpha course, and that sentence God used to change my life.
There's nearly 17,000 people have now completed the Alpha course in our prisons in the UK, and you can see out of 72,000 inmates, that starts to make an impact. And that started to make an impact on society, on the prison system, but not only that, it's made an impact on the churches.
Now the challenge when they come out is whether that discipleship will last. And we're not the slightest bit sceptical about the genuine steps forward that men make in prison. But the reality is that then needs to be backed up with an enormous amount of care if it's going to last the test of time, if there's going to be real fruit in the men's lives.
The church is so vital in helping out guys when they come out from Nick, from sorting out accommodation to sorting out jobs.
I thought we might be able to get Finney a job, find him some accommodation, and he said he wanted to come to London, and we might be able to be his sort of nurturing church. So he sort of fitted in with the whole idea that we were thinking about, of looking after the men and women when they come out of prison.
One of the things that was quite appealing to me about sweeping the streets was just meeting people, and also just being on your own, just sweeping the streets, because you know you're not really on your own when you're inside. It was very early starts, but I was also doing an Alpha course in the evening, and so it was very, very tiring and very hard work. I can remember going to a church service at HTB, and I bumped into a friend who I'd known from inside. And he comes up to me and he goes, "Finn, do you know anywhere where I can go? I'm on the streets." And my heart really went out to him, because I was staying with a family that had taken me in from prison. It didn't feel right to take him back to someone else's house. And all I could do was say no and watch him walk out onto the streets. And this is a guy that made a commitment to Jesus inside. So I was walking through the park on the way back to where I was staying. And I just remember just shouting up into the sky. I was really frustrated, and I shouted up, "Lord, put me in a place where I can help people like that." And got back, and there was a message on the answer phone.
Messages. Hi, Finney, it's Paul. I've got a thought going around in my mind. Why don't you come into the office tomorrow and we can chat about it? Okay, take care. Bye. End of message.
And as I heard that message, I knew what it was going to be about. It was going to be about caring for ex-offenders. It was going to be about working in a house that was going to meet people from the prison gate and take them in and disciple them and train them. And so I wrote it down on a piece of paper, caring for ex-offenders, and put it in front of my Bible. So the next day, I met with Paul, and he said, "Finn, how do you feel about working
with the guys when they come out of prison, you know, working with the ex-offenders, probably in some sort of rehab environment sort of thing, you know, when they come out, trying to mentor them and get them..."
Absolutely. And I was just totally amazed. I pulled out my Bible and I pulled out the piece of paper and I said, "I had a feeling that's what you were going to say." And I actually wrote it down on this bit of paper as a confirmation, care ministry for ex-offenders.
Which really confirmed to me that I should get him more involved.
My boys, just going to have a quick look at spiritual warfare from the scripture in Ephesians chapter 6. If we just find... At the Arbor, we train men how to live a different way. We train men how to talk about their feelings rather than how to take drugs when they come up against something that makes them feel bad.
For people like Finney, as they come out into churches, they've got a deep passion for serving Jesus Christ. And that passion has come from a very clear awareness of what they were like in the past and what they're like now. And they would say, it's God's grace that's done this.
He said he'd come for the sinner, didn't he? And I believe the prisoner is one of those people that he came for and changed. And I think it's an encouragement for people to see a life-changing experience in a man or woman from the prison walk, you know?
My experience is that ex-offenders are very realistic about human nature. They know the worst of it, and yet at the same time they've got a wonderful sense of an experience of God's grace and mercy. That brings a wonderful sense of hope into your church. If they can be changed and have a testimony of how God's changed them, what it brings to the church is a real sense that God can change anybody.
I've learnt there's a better way to live in society than how I used to live.
I've learned to forgive, and I've learned to love, you know, myself, and give love to other people.
Anyone who's feeling called to get involved in this ministry and are not too sure about what they should do or how they should go about it, what I would say to them is maybe they can make a phone call to the Alpha for Prisons office, and you might be able to chat to them about what they might be able to do, or to get involved with someone else who's involved in prison ministry or caring for ex-offenders, or even visit somewhere like this, the Arbor.
I used to get kicks out of doing dangerous stuff. Smashing up cars, setting fire to buses. I used to have great fun in doing all that kind of stuff. I used to have great fun in playing around with guns. But now I have fun in doing what's good, doing what God wants me to do.